Let's talk about backups and contingencies. New managers are often overwhelmed with all the things they need to be thinking about in their job. They've got new accountabilities to be concerned about. They're in meetings left, right, and center. There's so much happening that they can get caught off guard when someone leaves their team for some reason. Maybe they've gotten sick, or maybe they've transferred to a different department, and suddenly everyone realizes, oh wait, that person that just left, they knew how to do a thing that none of us else know, or they had access to a piece of information that none of us knew, or there was some little bit that is critical to the overall operation that's now no longer available. If you've ever been in this situation, you know how infuriating this is and how maddening it is to try to recreate something that has been lost. Now, I know you want to be an effective manager, and so you don't want to have this happen to you. So I'm going to talk about 3 things you need to do as a new manager in order to make sure that this doesn't take place. The first thing any new manager should be doing is what I like to call discovery. So this is where you take time to talk to your employees and figure out how does their work actually. And by that I mean the processes that are involved. How does information flow from one area into another area and out again? Or how do the tasks connect to each other? And part of this is just so you get a scope of what's going on, but a critical part is to identify where the pinch points are in these processes. By pinch points, I mean the points where the process suddenly comes and it goes through one person. This is a critical juncture because if that one person is removed, what happens to the overall workflow? So you want to understand where these pinch points are, because this is where your processes are the weakest, and if something breaks, this is what you need to make sure is accounted for. Now, in some cases, you can't do too much about the actual structure of the process. Maybe the work has to go through one person. Maybe there's a critical approval step that needs to take place. That's fine. You just need to know what those are so you can adapt to them in case something goes wrong. The next step is documentation. This is something that often gets missed. I've been in lots of different groups where no one has ever thought to do this, and I recommend it because it is a game changer and a lifesaver in case someone leaves your team. Document the processes. I recommend setting up a meeting with your team, so you're not calling anyone out, but I talk to everyone to say, hey, let's write all this down. Let's make sure that we have a document that explains all this, and let's assign different parts to the appropriate people to say, all right, we need you to document this into, maybe it's a spreadsheet, maybe it's a process flow diagram, maybe it's a written document, whatever makes sense for what you've got going in your organization. The key is you want to make sure you outline all the various steps that need to take place. As far as how much detail you get into, I leave that up to you. Sometimes it's just a matter of here's how the flow of information goes through and what are the critical steps. Other times you may actually want to get into very specific, step 1, do this, step 2, do that, step 3, do this. There may be that detailed require, but map it out. Get your team to map it out so that everyone has a copy of this documentation on hand. You won't believe how many times this has been helpful to me when suddenly I am left without an employee and I need to train someone new on what they need to do. Having this documentation in place allows them a roadmap so they know how to do things correctly. So the step 2 is document your processes. The third step in this process is cross-training. This is where you have your employees take time to train each other on what they do. Now, this is not to take a job away from the other person and give it to somebody new. It's really in the case of an emergency where someone leaves, you now at least have someone else on your team who can step in and do some critical steps of the process. They may not need to do that on a daily basis. That may not be their main job, but at least you've got a contingency, a backup in place. And they, of course, can fall back on the documentation. They can fall back on the written processes to make sure that they are doing things the correct way. But at least they've been trained. And a part of this contingency is also to make sure that they have access to the right systems. So if they need to have, security access to a documentation, maybe it's a particular program, maybe it's a key to a particular room that you have, you're ensuring that there is access available to multiple employees so that you have sufficient backup. Now, obviously, if there is some highly sensitive piece of information or process that you're dealing with, you'll need to take that in consideration, but you don't want to get stuck where the person who leaves cripples your organization. So in summary, there are 3 things you need to do to make sure that you're not caught off guard. First, discovery. Talk to your employees, figure out how all the processes work within your organization. 2, documentation. Have your employees write it all down in a way that can help themselves, but also help the next generation of team members. And 3, cross-training. Make sure that your employees are teaching each other how to do the steps. So if someone leaves, you've got it covered. Okay, so was this helpful? And do you have any horror stories of where things have gone wrong? Let me know in the comments so we can share our wisdom with each other. In the meantime, my name is Matthew Devine. I'm a leadership coach based in Toronto, Canada. And if you're interested in getting more information, click on the link below. I've got a checklist for new managers. It includes 100 items of the things that you need to do or need to know in order to be a great manager. So click on that link. Otherwise, until next time, let's get to work.